everyone, and welcome to Schmidlist Live, where today we're going to be talking about how to grow in your career as a developer. I've got Tim Bornholdt from the Jed Mahonis Group. He's going to be talking to us about, first we're going to start about junior developers, what do they need to be doing, then we're going to move on to senior developers and what they need to be talking about. But before we get into the interview and the discussion, I have to do my little plug. So we are hiring. foundrymakes.com/careers. Go and check it out. We are looking for developers. So if you're listening to the show and you're looking to grow your career, hey, why not check out Foundry Makes? All right, cool. So let's get started. Let's talk to Tim. Tim and I have been friends for a number of years, and we've learned a lot from each other. So Tim, thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm great. How you doing, Kurt?
Oh, living the dream, man. So tell me about the Jed Mahonis Group. Tell me about what you do there. How long you guys been around? What's the type of stuff you do there? Give me your bona fides, man.
Sure. JMG started back in 2012. We build custom iOS and Android apps for businesses. Anybody looking to have kind of that really native feeling mobile app experience, that's what we do. And I've been building websites since I was in first grade. So I've got a lot of dev experience, but most of my time these days is on the strategy, sales, getting projects in the door, as I like to say.
Yep.
So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
That's cool. So I want to talk to you because I know you do a lot of mentoring. You also have hired junior people. What are some of the things and qualities you look for to somebody maybe who's just coming out of school? What advice would you have for them if they're interested maybe in moving to an agency sort of format like you and I both run, or maybe into the corporate environment? Or are there differences between those and on how you should be preparing for that?
Man, I think that as a junior developer, it isn't so much about what you know already as a developer. Your skills, all the stuff you're going to know as a software developer are going to grow with time. What I'm really looking for in a junior developer is somebody that has the intangibles, that's hungry, that is asking lots of questions, that's willing to make mistakes and learn from them. Those are really the more important traits, it seems, for a junior developer standpoint, is the kind of stuff that's obviously you need to know how to code, but it's not
Sure.
so much, we're not going to throw you in and make you write something from scratch on day one. I'm looking for somebody that wants to learn and wants to grow and grow with us.
Yeah, I jokingly said that we should put on our job interviews must have 3 years of Stack Overflow experience, and because today's developer is much different than it was back in when you started, even, or for sure when I started. I mean, there was no Stack Overflows and things
No.
where there was a lot of support on the internet for developer as a profession or engineer as a profession, right? So,
Yeah.
where are some places for junior developers to go, like Stack Overflow, or other places that they should be, to your point, being hungry and learning from, like development groups? What have you seen work for people?
Mentoring is definitely the best way to do it in this industry, is finding somebody that's ideally one or two levels just above where you're at, so that they know how it feels to, I don't remember the first time I wrote HTML. It was that long ago, but it was me copying something out of a textbook and hoping that I got it right. With today, though, you can talk to anybody that just learned, they're fresh out of Prime Academy, or they're fresh out of some other boot camp, and having them be able to mentor you and kind of share, here's what I learned, here's those little tricks and tips. I think the in-person stuff, like you said, going to meetups, going to a different junior, I know in the Twin Cities there's a junior developers group that's really active and really really good. So yeah, that just getting involved and having somebody help you is definitely the best way to do it.
Cool. So what about my, designers? They all have portfolios, and a lot of developers have your GitHub or things like that. What in terms of projects? If I'm a junior developer, some of the things that I coach people on is to keep working on projects. Maybe you don't have a paying gig, as it were, right now, but finding ways to keep working, to keep growing those skills while you're looking for a job. I mean, what are you looking for when you look at repos and things like that? When you start to get like under the, behind the curtain, as it were, with developers, what are some telltale signs of like someone that, like you said, you can see is hungry, is looking to learn, is looking to grow?
I think the thing that I always look for is I talk with the developers and ask them what they struggled with, and I think through those struggles, that's half development is a struggle every day. uh, I like to joke it's 90% of the time you're banging your head against the desk, and 10% of the time it's like one of the highest highs you can have because you just figured it out and it just works. So I think that's what I look for is somebody that is going to stick through and get all the way to the end of a project, whether it's shipping an app to the app store or whether it's getting an app, just a web app live up on the internet. If you don't have a big portfolio yet, the two things that I would advise is either one, look for like a nonprofit or some other kind of company that has a really crappy website right now or a really crappy app or something like that, where you can partner with them and say, hey, why don't I do this for free or do it for putting my name on in the footer of the website, and having that sort of that helps for sure on the portfolio side. But another thing is just take a passion project, something that you're really interested in. That's what's going to help. Right. You need to have that intrinsic drive that's going to push you through that 90% of crap that sucks about programming. So.
Well, yeah, because I mean, everybody loves the start of a project, right? It's that finishing a project that's the biggest grind, right? It's that 80-20
the valley of despair.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And because again, like those are the things that you want in somebody, right? Is like you said, those intrinsic things those things are hard to put, a finger on and say, yes, because I know this person's going to be tenacious in the last 20% of the project or something, right? But to your point, if you can have that experience working in some of those, projects that either are your passion projects or for, like you said, nonprofits or your brothers, sisters, uncles, hairdressers place or something that you can find, right? And be able to tell those stories, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's again, it's all about finding that project that's going to be intrinsic and help you move up to the next level. If you get a job as a junior developer, nobody expects you to be perfect. I guess there are a lot of people that'll post like you need 14 years of Swift experience, even though the language has been around for 3 years.
Yep. I've seen those.
But that's not how it looks when you go to foundrymakes.com, right? That's not what you're posting. Say good.
No, it doesn't look like that.
Mine neither. It's funny. Like I'm sure you get resumes too all the time, where it's like the resume is just padded with the first 5 paragraphs of every single language ever invented, saying that you're an expert in it, and it's just that drives me up a wall. And I get why. I didn't get why until someone's like, well, every big company that hires they use an algorithm and run through your resume, and it shows
an applicant tracking service. Yep. Yeah, they just scans for keywords.
Right. So it's really, if you're looking for your first job, that's one thing to pay attention to, is whether you're looking at a small company or a big company. Big companies are going to you're going to have to pass through all the levels of BS and bureaucracy, where small companies like ours, you're talking to me and Kurt. So I will be able to look through your resume and say like, okay, well, do you really have like Fortran experience? Really? Do you? Because I don't believe that you do.
Some mod X, maybe Cold Fusion.
Yeah, just a quick ActiveX script too. Yeah, let's throw that in.
Why not toss that in, right? So yeah, the thing I think that I find with is that there is that push and pull, because I want a job, right? And sometimes you feel like I just want to take any job. But like you said, I mean, there's much different experiences in a larger corporate environment than there is in a smaller agency environment. If you were to give advice to your younger self, I mean, would you, I get different answers from everybody. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but would you prefer to start off in a much larger institution, try to get that job first, or start in a smaller place? What would your advice be?
If I'm talking to my younger self, I mean, my business partner and I just literally started a company out of college. We didn't have any previous professional development experience. So I'm probably the last person to ask for that kind of advice. But I mean, as somebody that did it that way, I do think that we would have benefited from having at least a year or two of somebody else's infrastructure. Because as a 20-year-old idealistic person, you're like, well, everything sucks and everybody's, bureaucracy is garbage. yeah. And then you have to do everything from scratch.
Right.
It's kind of nice to have some of that underlying stuff learned, so then you can know what rules to break when you're out and working for other companies.
Yeah. And so, what are some obvious mistakes you've seen? You get resumes. What are some of the things that really, grind your gears, as it were, um, when you see, when you get these applicants? What are some common mistakes or common errors that you've seen um, that you could speak to?
I think the biggest ones are like I kind of mentioned before, having for applying for my size of a company. I don't want you to have 1,000 years of experience in every language ever. It's like I want you to build an iOS app. I want you to have Objective C or Swift experience. If we're building web apps, I want you to have some JavaScript, some React, whatever the job application calls for. I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes is people just you interview. I've got people that I'm mentoring that have had like 130 interviews. Like they've put out their resume, they keep putting things out there, and it's like if you shotgun your resume everywhere and you don't tailor it for the companies that you're putting it in for, it's a quick way for them to pass you over. So I think spending time on those things no one's going to call you out on it. If you send your resume to Foundry and you send your resume to me, make them a little bit different. You know what Kurt's into and you know what I'm into. Like you just talk about biking when you're with Kurt and talk about beer when you're with me. That'd be a very quick way to get a call back and an interview in. So I think
Yeah,
just
no,
keep it
that's
fun.
something I do talk to people about a lot is the difference you do want to have, because if you are looking to find a job and you're posting it to LinkedIn, Monster, you're sending it to these giant companies, you do want a keyword rich, more keyword rich resume because it is going through those applicant tracking systems. But
Right.
when you're applying to these smaller organizations, like you just mentioned, take the time to actually speak to that organization. Tell me why you want to work here, not just that you have the skills. Let me know if you like those or not. Like, right?
Yeah, we hired a marketing person about a year ago now, and the person that we ended up hiring was just she sent us this graphic. She made a quick infographic for her top 5 reasons why she wanted to work at the Jed Mahonis Group, and it was all like stuff from what we had discussed and different things off our website. It's like you could tell she really wanted this job and went above and beyond. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for in an
Mm-hmm.
applicant, not so much can you make a website or can you make an app.
Yep. Right. Yeah. Or just, like you said, it's not even just for the development side of things, it's for anything that a smaller company might be looking for, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about, when it comes to code challenges or code things, these are things that come up a lot. I've heard discussions with a number of developers that don't like code challenges. They don't like the idea of a test. Some people I've even seen say, they feel like they're doing free work for some organizations at the size of them. I mean, what have you seen? What do you do, first of all, when it comes to that? How does Jed Mahonis Group handle that? But what have you seen work? What doesn't work? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What advice can you give to that developer who's about to get that code challenge or worried about it?
Well, yeah. To your first question, what we do is we have a secluded room with a single red light suspended from the ceiling, and it's this fight to the death. That
Perfect.
it's this huge, yeah,
Two developers
spikes and
enter,
every.
one
Yes,
developer
one
leaves.
leaves. Yes. I hate those code challenges too. They don't seem to test the right things, in my opinion. If you're Google and you're looking for somebody that's an AI, like working on super low level things, yeah, maybe that works. If you're building web apps, I've never personally found tests and quizzes and things like that in the moment to test the right kinds of things that we're looking for. I think it favors people that are good in those scenarios, and it leaves out a lot of talented people that might otherwise not be good at, drawing a binary tree on a whiteboard or doing a quick script. So on the other hand, I have seen like there are certain things. One of our other companies that we run, they do autonomous vehicle research, and
Okay.
they have a need for you to be able to do like simple math, like trigonometry and that kind of a thing. So you would expect that somebody that's coming out of college to be able to fill out, do a couple of quick, figure out what angle this thing is going to enter at or whatever. So it really depends on what company you're going to and and what you're who you're going to interview with. But I think one thing that would be probably in your favor is you could probably ask the interviewer before you go in and have a little bit of prep of what is going to be asked, because sometimes people will say like, yeah, we're going to have a quiz, and then you just kind of like, it's probably nothing, and then it's this like 50 question huge test or something like that. So I think being able to ask ahead of time, I think that would be a fair thing to ask of any interviewer, of what should I prepare for this test. But yeah, I mean, how do you see it working when you've talked with people? Does it seem like people really enjoy those tests, or are people starting to move away from those tests? Or
Yeah, I think it's all across the board. Mike, who just left a comment here, he talked about, just talk through actual code, things you want to change, talk through the thinking behind it. I think just to Mike's point, who just commented here, I want to know how people are making decisions is the most important thing to me. Whether or not you use tabs or spaces, I could care less. But again, I'm not a senior level developer, and yes, sometimes those things, those formatting rules and those things, but those are things I can teach somebody, right, Tim? Right?
yeah,
Like I can teach them to put down the tabs and start using spaces or whatever the case may be. But how they make decisions, how they communicate those things, how they problem solve. That's where I find code challenges fail in a lot of ways. If it is designed in a way where I can understand, to your point about how I make decisions, then sure, some sort of challenge is totally acceptable. But just giving somebody necessarily just a prototype and saying build me something like that. Yeah, I mean, back when I was at other agencies, we had all sorts of different systems. We even built an automated code challenging system, and because they're engineers, right? So why not automate the code challenge?
of course, yeah.
But yeah, either way, no matter what we had on the front end for the challenges, like it still just ended up people in a room saying, "Why did you make that choice?" You know.
Yeah, and that's where I think the tests can be successful, is if you are able to talk through a problem and actually show it's kind of like the old, when you're doing a math problem in high school and they say show your work or explain how you're coming to it. That is, I think, a more acceptable test. If you're sitting in a room and there somebody presents you with a problem and you just talk through high level how you would go about solving it, I think that's perfectly appropriate as an interview style question. But to expect somebody to just sit and crank out a code for your project or your app or whatever and just be able to take it and use it, it's like, yeah, that's not cool.
Yeah. Let's shift gears just a little bit. Let's talk about people who maybe already have a career as a developer. Maybe they're looking to move up in their development. Maybe they're looking to go from developer to senior developer, maybe senior developer, lead developer, and whatever they have in some of these organizations, right? Senior developer 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
All these different things. So, what would be your advice to those people that are looking to more take on a lead role, to lead projects, to kind of be the person who's helping make the bigger decisions within their projects? How do you see people getting to that next level? What are the skills and talents that they should be focused on?
I think the first big thing, if you're looking to level up as a developer, is to make sure you actually want that. Because I think a lot of times developers, when you're really good at what you do, if you really are good at somebody giving you a problem and you going and fixing it, that is a very needed skill set that you can really ride out. Moving up as a more senior level developer means that you're not so much maybe in the code every single day, but you're making more
further and further away from that developer.
Exactly. You're making more architecture decisions and more strategy around the product than you are actually implementing things. And that's where, I've seen a lot of senior developers move up to be managers and then move back down to go back and code. So I think it's important to know what you're getting into if you want to move up in those ranks. But I think that the biggest skill and the biggest thing that developers developers of all types can learn if you want to move up to that size is develop empathy and develop your own empathetic skills of being able to translate from non-geek to geek and not making people feel dumb for not knowing what they don't know. It's a pretty easy thing as a developer to, and I mean, just sit in any of my college classes. There were tons of nerds who would go up and brag about getting an extra credit question right, or fighting over the extra point on the test or something. And it's like,
Yeah,
it's not
it's a
when you get
competition.
just, it is. And being a senior developer is, you got to set the ego aside, and it's about how do you make the product as a whole better. So you're kind of just tackling different things. And so it's just, I think, general leadership skills and putting yourself, if you want to move up into that role, it's taking on more responsibility as a leader, saying you can, help delegate tasks, or you can help project manage, or you can do things like that. Those are the kind of skills that are going to make you a more valued senior developer.
Yeah, and I like what you said, because what I hear in what you're talking about is you shouldn't do it by yourself. Is that you should look for that next level person to talk to about, what do you like about being a lead? What do you like about managing? What do you not like about managing? Not just doing it in a bubble, with yourself and, in online forums or social media and talking about it, but actually reaching out and connecting with other senior level developers and lead developers and asking them, what are some of the things that, were great for you? What are things you missed out on? Because I remember years ago, it was pretty commonplace to be like, oh, this guy's the best developer. This gal is the best developer. We'll put them in charge of the development team. Problem
Yeah.
solved. Look at, we've got, and slowly months later, that person is hating their life. The team is not happy because they're getting the repercussions of that person not happy with their life either.
Yeah.
But because the organization, the only way they're structured is the only way you can get more money and more responsibility, more accountability, more power, or whatever, or more decision making ability, is to move to a managerial role where you're managing people in some capacity, or at least managing all of their work. And that's where, exactly like what I'm saying, what I'm hearing you say is like, you've got to make sure that that's what you want, even if in the organization the only way to move up is that way. Then my suggestion would be maybe start looking outside of that organization, for other potential ways to move up without necessarily having to take on those responsibilities that you don't feel super confident with, or get confident with those things, right, Tim?
Yeah, that's why you're the host here. Is you just took all my rambling and made it make sense. I think what's interesting, that kind of resonates with me personally, because when we started Jed Mahonis Group, the plan, we didn't have a plan. The plan was Rob, my business partner, was going to handle all the business and sales and marketing and all that stuff, and my job was just going to be to sit and code. And probably 3 or 4 years ago, we decided that he actually prefers to be doing the coding and the project management stuff, and I prefer to be going out and doing like this kind of thing. He would die if he had to be a guest on this podcast right now.
Poor guy.
So yeah, so I think it really does come down to just having some experience and learning more about what it means to be a senior developer or an architect or whatever kind of role you want to move up into. Getting good mentorship is everything in this industry, and I think that's something we as like leaders in our industry need to be better about, is helping bring people, figuring out where they want to go and helping them get there.
Yeah, and again, we're all busy, right? But if you can find something of value to help deliver to that potential mentor as well, that would be a great way to do it too, right?
Yeah,
So, again, it's not just, what I hate is getting those messages that are like, hey, can I pick your brain? And it's
yeah,
like, why? What do you want?
right.
And so I think, my advice would also be, when you're reaching out for that mentorship, have a clear ask, around what you're looking to get out of that mentorship, and what you're hoping maybe even you could provide back to that potential person. Just random messages that say, "Can I pick your brain?" or "Can I buy you a virtual coffee?" or something. Are not as interesting as maybe telling me a little bit about your situation, telling me about where your goals are, where you want to go, right? And then I get it, like, if you just need a job, you just need a job, man. You need to make some money.
Yeah,
Um, but in in the world of development, I feel like there are so many different options in terms of the way you can work, the type of work. You can be on a 100-person team over at some giant insurance company, or you can be on like you said, like a 3-man group working out of a co-working space, right? Um,
Yeah.
but really having a good understanding of what those goals are, right? And sometimes when I've talked to those people is they don't know what those potential things are. And you can't just make that stuff up. You have to go out and talk to other people, right? And say
Yeah.
like, what did you do? Wow, you're chief of engineering for blah blah blah. What? How did you get there? What did you do, man? I'd really love to learn a little bit from you and take some time because I'm looking to move to a leadership position or things like that, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
want something where you can have kind of this parlay and not just a one-sided conversation, right?
Well, yeah, and I was going to ask you actually, not to put you on the spot, it's your show, but with when you're saying it's important to ask, and or it's important to provide value back to the mentor. What have you found? Because I know sometimes I think all of us have that imposter syndrome and that kind of feeling of like, well, what can I provide? I'm just a junior
Sure.
developer out of wherever.
Yeah.
Like, what could I possibly provide Kurt Schmidt? But what do you see like what what do you see as people like
Yeah.
providing value back? Like, can it be something as simple as like, hey, I saw this cool article and thought it reminded me of you and stuff you're doing at Foundry. Maybe you want to take a look at it, or like, are there things that you've seen as successful that your mentees have brought to the table themselves?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. The what I found is exactly like what you just said is a good example, right? Where they have done some of their research, they've looked at some of the work we've done, they've spent some time doing that, and they show up prepared. And when I mean
Mm,
show up, I mean whether it's a LinkedIn message, an email, or an introduction or something like that. They're at least a little bit prepared, right? So immediately when I meet new folks, I imagine, well, I have to give you some background. I have to give you some, history to understand, where we're at and maybe what value you would even get out of having a relationship with me. But if I know that you've done some of that work up front and you're presenting it back to me in a way that I can see that like, oh, okay, you get what we're doing or what we're up to, and or at least you kind of get it and you're looking to understand it more because you have some specific questions.
yeah.
But yeah, to your point, also in the job coaching I've been doing a lot over the past few months is just taking me along for your journey, like, or promising that you will, right?
Yeah.
Is that I've done job coaching with folks and I'll spend a half an hour with them and I'll say, hey, here's how you should update this, here's how you should update that, make these changes, reach out to these people, and then I don't hear from them for months. And then I might see in LinkedIn or something months later that they're still looking for work. And over the last few months, I probably ran into one or two people I could have insured them to.
Yeah.
So for me, it's also about not just kind of a drive-by sort of experience. Like, do you
Yeah.
really want to get to know me, or do you just need some quick info and need to move on? That's fine. Either way, just be honest about it,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
let's just move on, right? But again, since we are going to be all, especially virtual for as far as I can see, we're going to be virtual for a while. What are some of those things out there? Like you said, what research can I do to bring back to that relationship to say, hey, I saw that your company just got funded, and that's really cool. And I saw this article about this. Do you guys use this type of stuff? Do you do this? I'm really looking to grow in my career, yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that that's helpful. Yeah, because I think I, uh, I always just struggle with that of like what would I actually give you in terms of value, but even just like as a mentor, some of the value is being able to follow someone along on their journey
Right,
and be proud with them, and it's like you don't want to invest your time in somebody that's just going to take your advice and
right.
not talk to you for 6 months and then all of a sudden need your advice again. It's like, well, I gave that to you already, and what did you do?
Well, exactly. It's a process too, especially when you're starting out or you're starting in a certain place, just like you had said earlier, this is a journey that you're going to go on over time. And you don't want mentors that are kind of one-hit wonders, right? Where they're like,
Right.
well, I would just make sure you don't forget your brackets, and we're done. Like, there's my advice. But building a real relationship with someone, right? And it's not that you're going to go and join the softball league with them, or play chess with them on Friday nights, or maybe you will. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is about building connections in ways that you can support each other, right? And because for me, if you can intro me also to somebody that I find could be interesting, or I've had people that I've done some career coaching with that have sent me over a couple of lists of people that they're connected with, and they're like, hey, this person does this person does that. Are any of these people of interest to you to maybe meet? So opening me up to your network as well, and vouching for my credibility is also super helpful, right?
Yeah.
All of us have a network. It's about how valuable you make it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's also really important, is to look at networking as a part of, kind of where even more value you can add to things, right?
Yeah. And that's a lot of the value I get out of it is I think with junior developers especially, it's like if I mentor somebody now, I can't tell you how many times, like back in 2012 when we started the business, we would talk to somebody and it was just a one quick conversation where I'd answer a question or whatever, and then 6 years later they're with a different company and they have a need for something else, and it all
Right.
comes back. So it's
Exactly.
yeah, it is building those and fostering those relationships. That's really what it's all about.
Yep. Yeah, it really is. And so again, back to your point, let's sum up a little bit about what we talked about here, Tim. So, like you had mentioned, the growing as a junior developer, getting that first job, mentorship, very important, right? So network, right? Grow that
Hmm.
network, connect to people, try to find things of value that you can offer in kind of payment, as it were, for that mentorship.
Hmm.
But also, don't stick with that mentorship, and you might have to do a lot of the legwork on your end because that person is probably really busy, but they're probably still getting value out of what you're doing. But you're just going to have to you have to be a little tenacious, right?
Yes. Yep. It's like I said, there's people that I've mentored where they've put in 130 applications. It takes that many to just get a job. So yeah, you gotta stick to it and
I
keep.
I know somebody at a big retail company locally that had 13 interviews and still didn't get the job.
Nuts to that.
Can you
How do you have
imagine?
13 interviews? Like
13.
that's ridiculous.
Oh,
And was it for a junior level job or was it a little higher than that at
it was a
least?
little higher than that, but
Okay.
it
Makes
wasn't
me feel a little better then. It's like if you
it
were
wasn't a VP role though.
okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's
So,
pretty excessive.
but yeah, but then again, that's going back to my point about, if you're new to development, talk to other developers, find out what they like about working at that place or this place. One of the things I did with some of the people I job coach with was was to mention to them, like, reach out to people that have the title at places that you might want to work with, and be like, hey, how'd you get that job? That looks really cool. You must be really proud of the work you do, and I would love to learn something from you. Especially on LinkedIn, flattery goes a long way.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and people love it. I saw a long time ago that asking somebody for help is like a super honorable thing to do,
Yep.
and I think reaching out and just people like being bothered on LinkedIn because everybody wants people to notice them and be like, hey, I'd really love to have somebody reach out to me and just ask me a question. And when they come out of nowhere, it's like, yeah, it feels really good. So you might feel ridiculous doing it, but it really works if you do it with the right intentions and do it with the right way. But yeah,
Yeah.
just do it.
And that's how you start to build that network, right? Because you can also then ask them questions about, like, where do you grow? Where do you find areas to grow? What groups do you belong to? Who are you connected with? Is there somebody else you could introduce me to after you build that relationship, right? Like, you can
Yeah.
use that person as a jumping off point to move on to the next things. But then always remembering asking them what are they looking for, and make note of what they're looking for, because you might not have it that day, but 6 months from now, a year from now, you might have that thing that you can come back to them and say, hey, I know you were saying you were looking for a designer. I've got a friend here that I just ran into that's looking for a job that might be a good fit. Do you want an introduction, right? So that's the whole point of building up that network. And so if you just rely on the resume, which is just a marketing document, right? It's just a quick marketing document to get you to that next level. That's why you're sending out 130 resumes and you're not actually getting any traction. You're just spinning tires, you know?
Right. Yep. Couldn't agree more.
So let's recap on the senior developer one. I think you made a really important point, is to make sure you actually want that more responsibility or that more management, right?
Yes, it's totally different than programming. So it can be a lot more stressful, and it's just different skill sets. So if you really love programming, it doesn't mean like being a manager means all of a sudden you're just programming but twice as much or something. It means you're programming less and you're helping other people become better at what they do.
Yeah, I mean, back to your point about the kind of competition in school, you mentioned, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people that just because they like to be right doesn't necessarily mean they should be in charge, right?
No, exactly.
I mean, you can be right in a lot of other places, you know. And
Hmm.
I've said this before. Like I've been right standing on a big smoldering pile of rubble, you know, but I've been right, even
Yeah.
though I decimated everything else around me in order to get there. Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations, you're right.
Congratulations. Yeah.
And then you don't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
great.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Or a job I'd even want. Okay,
Right.
so Tim, we're going to wrap it up here, but I wanted to thank you again for joining me. I always enjoy our conversations. I'm glad we got to make this happen. So if I want to know more about Tim and the Jed Mahonis Group and the work you do, and you also do a podcast too, where you want to talk about that too.
Yeah, it only took us, like you said, it only took us like what, a year and a half to try to pull this off. So I'm glad that we finally were able to do it as well. Yeah, if you liked my ramblings at all, I do have a podcast of my own. It's called Constant Variables, and you can find it wherever you're listening to this podcast here. And I also, if you're looking for any mobile app development work, if your company's thinking about adding an app into their life cycle of anything they do, you can reach out to us at jmg.mn, and you'll be talking to me. So give us a shout, and we're happy to work with you.
That's awesome. Well, Tim, again, thank you so much. I really enjoy our conversations, and you'll have to come back. We'll have to keep talking about this because people hiring developers is not going to go away anytime soon.
Not at all. And next time I'll make sure that I'm using an actual microphone and an actual camera as well.
You
I'll have
sound
to
great.
help you. I don't look as good as you, so I gotta make things look right.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of work that has to. This isn't just how it just happens. A lot of work goes into that. So, cool. Well, thanks, Tim. Real quick before we take off, I want to reiterate foundrymakes.com/careers. We're going to be live again tomorrow, and we're going to be talking to Gario Harrison, and we're going to be talking about sales and marketing and kind of how to grow in those roles. What are things you should be expecting to, if you're working with those types of folks, how to best work with them. So we're going to be continuing the series, kind of how to grow your careers, how to get a job. A lot of career coaching on here. So make sure you hit the like and subscribe stuff down there below. It would be much appreciated. I would love to see you back here. And thanks to everybody who put comments here. Mike, thanks for joining in on the conversation. Chad as well. So I want everybody to have an awesome day. And thanks again for joining. I really appreciate it. We'll talk to you very soon. Have a good one.